Thank you so much for Professor Rao and Commissioner for having me here for this presentation on smart cities. Um, After a very interesting session, which you all heard, I'll try and make this as interesting as possible. The session, what I need to talk about in terms of the smart cities is what's happening right from day one when the mission was envisioned about 2 years ago, and why do we need smart cities to begin with? Because there's a lot of debate, there's a lot of discussion, there has been a lot of conferences where the ideas of smart cities have been discussed. At the same time, while there's a pros and cons. I mean, there's people who understand it and feel very strongly about it. At the same time, there is also a little bit of concern or a skepticism against this whole notion of why smart cities or what it does and the benefits and pros and cons for it. So I try to address all of these components as part of this presentation. And then, of course, you are in right now sitting in city of Tirupati, which was selected as a smart city just few months ago. And yeah.
We have Mr. Vinay Chand, IAS, Commissioner, Madam you also, of Tirupati Municipal Corporation. He has made sufficient efforts and put in a lot of time, and Vishal Kundra helped them in a proposal which was submitted to the Government of India, and Tirupati has been approved as smart city. Let's congratulate.
And just to add to it, the commissioner. I mean, whatever you will see as part of the smart city proposal for Tirupati, it happened under his leadership. Typically in a consulting world, when you're working late night hours and because it's expected because we are consultant and we have a client. But I've never seen in my professional life where a client, sends you a message at 4 a.m. in the morning because he himself is sitting and reviewing stuff. So that's the level of commitment which the commissioner has shown as part of the smart city proposal. So this is basically the broad agenda. And first of all, I'd like to quickly brief you about what is this entire smart city mission, which the Ministry of Urban Development initiated about 2 years ago. There's a prescribed sort of a very broad definition which the ministry started with. But the baseline is there is no definition of a smart city. Anyone who tells you that smart city can be defined is not right. The answer is not right. The smart city definition emerges. Each city, each community, each neighborhood, each state is different, it's unique. So the definition of the smart city has to emerge from that particular geography. But still, for the guidance to all these cities all over the country, the ministry came up with these three broad parameters. A smart city should have basic infrastructure. It uses smart solutions to provide citizen services as well as enhance the existing services, as well as it follows an area based approach. And I'll have a couple of slides specifically on this because each time we go around the country, wherever I made presentation, conference, or in various cities, there's always a concern that why an area has been picked, why not the whole city. So I'll explain what that is. But the point you need to remember is area based development is a pilot, and the entire smart city mission is focused on an area based approach. The objectives which the ministry has laid out is providing basic infrastructure, enhancing the quality of life, sustainable environment, not only from the point of view of green buildings, but also from the point of view of sanitation, also from the point of view of clean air, also from the point of view of sustainable economics. Applying smart solutions. A lot of you may have heard, again in various forums in media, that when this entire discussion about smart city started, the whole notion was that the baseline is about IT or ICT solutions. That everything has to have a smart solution from the point of view of IT and ICT. It's there, but it's not the only thing. The entire mission is structured around addressing all components which actually helps build a city, and of course set an example for its replication. That's a very important point of the entire mission. The goal is not to do or make a neighborhood into a smart neighborhood today and just forget about it. The goal is that whatever is done today, in this phase one of the entire smart city mission, which is about 5-year program from 2014 to 2019, but replicate it. Each time you improve a neighborhood, learn the lessons and replicate it elsewhere in the city. And over a process of 20 years, 25 years, or a normal cycle in which a city envisions itself, the whole city can become smart. When this program started about 2 years ago, right now, all of us know that there are 100 selected smart cities in India. But when it first started, there was much more than that. The number was much higher. The reason being that initially stage one required that each state to come up with a number of cities which they think could be developed as smart cities, and the ministry developed a criteria. So there was a prescribed criteria in terms of the population, core infrastructure, level of services provided by various sectors, and that through that evaluation criteria, the states actually picked up cities in terms of what cities could be smart. So stage one actually was a interstate competition. And then the final outcome of that was 100 cities. For example, within states, there would be probably 500 cities which the states must have come up with. But because of the selection criteria, the ministry selected 100 of them. And this is the list. The diagram on the left hand side basically indicates all the 100 selected cities in each of the states. So that number is fixed. For instance, Andhra has 3 cities: Tirupati, Kakinada, and Vizag. Whereas Maharashtra has 10 cities, Telangana has 2 cities. So each state actually had various different type of numbers, which actually coupled together made it the 100 smart cities. And then the round 2, which was the smart city challenge proposal, that started in about June of last year. So that was a competition between 100 smart cities. So what you are seeing now is an output of that 100 smart cities, of which few cities have been successful in terms of developing an innovative proposal addressing the needs and aspirations of the citizens, and based upon an independent jury which included both national as well as international experts established by the Ministry of Urban Development. So that jury selected which city should be advanced to be labeled as a smart city. So that phase of the competition, at least for round 3, is complete, and now we are in the next phase of selecting the other smart cities, and there's a slide which actually talks about the numbers and all those things. Within the framework of the smart city as identified by the ministry, there's 2 broad components. This is important. One is pan city. Pan city means the entire city. The definition of a city here is the limits of the municipal corporation boundary. So that's is called the pan city, and one of the on a pan city basis, smart solutions, minimum 1, maximum 2. This is what was initially decided. So that has to be applied. Whereas in the area-based development, which is again a selection of a specific area within the city, all the components have to be addressed. And within that, the area-based development, in order to pick an area-based development, there were 3 broad guidelines: retrofitting, redevelopment, and greenfield. In a scenario where there is no existing city, nobody is living, right? That becomes a greenfield. It's very easy to develop, design a smart city in that scenario. But when you have a city where people are living in it, and there are day-to-day issues, whether you call it encroachments to getting clean drinking water, to power supply, to traffic congestion, so you are actually living, the citizens are actually living those issues on a day-to-day basis. So solving those problems is much more challenging. That's the reason why, in the guidelines which was established by the Ministry of Urban Development, they gave the flexibility to each of the city to pick whether the selected area should be a retrofit, a redevelop, or a greenfield. Retrofit basically means that you do not demolish anything. You fix what the existing area issues are. Redevelopment means that you demolish something and you rebuild it. Affordable housing redevelopment programs or public housing redevelopment program is a very commonly known term. And then of course greenfield, that it's a greenfield. There's nothing there, and that area has been picked, and the whole thing will be designed around the smart city mission guidelines for a greenfield area. And this prescribed the areas of each of these models were also prescribed. This is the minimum area, so the cities can pick a broader area. The reason I'm giving you a brief, because what happened post these guidelines, which we'll see as part of the later part of the presentation, is built upon these parameters. So these guidelines were already prescribed, and for instance, in case of Tirupati, we did the retrofit model. And again, I've already mentioned this, that the criteria of replication was very important. But this thing has come up again and again while we were working on the Smart City Challenge proposal, as well as even post that. That the question which citizens ask is that why pick one area? Why not do the whole city? I'll explain in detail, but if you look around the world, any of the developed cities which we look up to in terms of as being a livable city, Paris, Chicago, London, Singapore, none of these cities actually became what they are in a span of 5 years. It took them decades. In some cases, at least the European and mostly European cities, they actually have gone through a cycle of destruction. That is World War II. Post World War II, they started redeveloping themselves. Singapore, which is on the east side of India, is a different scenario. What Singapore is today, it wasn't that way 50 years ago. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a cycle, there's an incremental process when you start developing cities. The issues which we see in our streets, in our getting the core infrastructure or basic services which the city is providing, those issues, number one, has to be clearly understood. What needs to be done has to be clearly defined, and then we'll have to phase out the improvements. And that's why the area-based development, which is a pilot. So for example, if this diagram is a map of a city and black lines are the streets, area-based development is basically a pilot, which is a phase one. That's not the end, that's the beginning of the entire smart city mission. A lot of these things which is happening around the country is focused on an area-based development. But phase two or the future phases could be a bigger area. It could be the entire city, depending upon the capacity of the city, financial resources, human resources, talent pool, and all those other components. So this thing has come up in many forums, that why have you picked one area? So it's very critical to understand that the area-based development is a pilot. It's phase one of the smart city mission for India. In addition to the quality of life, the ministry has also laid down some of the critical components. This actually is a list. It covers basically everything. From power supply, water supply, clean drinking water, 24/7 clean drinking water, sanitation, housing, to health and education, to safety. Making cities comfortable and friendly to elderly and disabled people. None of our cities in India, unfortunately, are elderly or disabled friendly cities. Our buildings are designed, the interiors could be friendly to elderly or disabled, but our cities are not. So the ministry laid out these parameters, and what we have done, in all the cities which we worked on, and specifically in Tirupati, that the area which has been picked, the fundamental thing is that area which has been picked should be user friendly to all citizens, irrespective of your income level, irrespective of your physical abilities. So that's one key component which you'll see as part of the presentation. But the ministry also laid a very strong emphasis on this aspect. And of course, in terms of smart solution, these are like broad parameters which the ministry laid out, whether it's about e-governance or citizen services, waste management, energy management, urban mobility, and water management. So these are all technology-based solutions for various sectors. For example, nowadays it's very common that you have a if it's a public transportation, you have it on your phone. It's an app. In my previous life, when I was in Chicago, each time I used to take public transport, and each time I have to take a bus, it never happened that I leave my house and wait at a bus stop for a bus. I could plan my trip. I could stay in my house, and through an app, I know exactly what time that bus which I'm looking for will come at a bus stop. So that's a very simple solution. It's also happening in India. Many cities are doing it, but in a very piecemeal approach. So it has to be done in a very comprehensive way. And similarly for monitoring our utilities, how do we ensure that the water, clean water which is being supplied, how much is being supplied, and then how much is being used? So that data can only emerge when you have a monitoring device, a monitoring system. So that is called SCADA and smart metering. So that's another component which has been emphasized very strongly in our smart city proposal. Because once you know how much water is coming in and how much is getting consumed, you will know how much is getting wastage. And that's what we call in technical terms that, and what the water or, any of those utilities which gets wasted, so there is no record for it, but money has already been spent or wasted. So those are the kind of smart solutions, which we are looking at, where there's a better, so that the city administrator, the commissioners actually have a much stronger hold in terms of monitoring and operationalizing the various services of the city. Urban mobility, again, from the point of view of, it's very commonly done, even public information system for bus stops, or even simple things like, your pollution monitoring sensors. So, these are the kind of thing which we are looking at as part of the smart solution. So ministry actually, gave this broad list, but the cities were told that you don't have to restrict, if there's something new available, go ahead and do it. The point is that all of these guidelines were a sort of a foundation. And this slide actually talks about the various cities, which has been selected, and there have been 3 rounds so far. So round 1 had 20 cities, round 2, which is also known as fast track cities, was 13 cities, and round 3 is 27 cities. So out of 100 cities, 60 cities have been selected as smart cities. So, and out of those 60 cities, now all of those 60 cities have to go to round the next stage. The next stage of the selected cities is to implement, to design and implement the smart city proposal from an inception to a reality. So very soon, maybe in 6 months or a year's time, you will start seeing those results in Tirupati. those things will start showing up on the ground. And even if you're coming from different cities and if your city is selected as a smart city, you'll start seeing those results. And there's a lot of pressure from ministry. I mean, as a consultant, I can tell you, there's a monthly review meeting. I've also heard that these things are getting monitored at the highest level at the PMO's office in terms of what's happening on the ground. How can we ensure that things are happening in a smooth and in a practical way? So this is basically 60 cities have been selected, and the next round where the remaining 40 cities will come up sometime this year. The implementation, because that's another critical aspect, the fundamental difference from a conventional approach of city building and the smart city approach is that it will be implemented, monitored, managed, and operationalized by an SPV. SPV is a special purpose vehicle. So it's almost like a company and has its own structure, and that actually looks into the managing and operationalizing and implementing the entire smart city proposal. In terms of funding, because that's one of the key things. The design is good, but how you going to implement it without the money? So the whole idea why this entire smart city challenge proposal, a competition between 100 cities, was launched was for, number one is to get that initial tag of being smart. Number two was to get funding. So there's a funding available from central government for each of these selected cities in the tune of 500 crores, and the state and the ULB have to do a matching grant of around 500 crores. So the pot for each city is around 1,000 crores. That's just a seed money. Then there's other models, PPP, or cities looking for investments from other sources. So all of that is on play. All of that are things on the table. It depends on an individual city how they want to acquire those various external funding sources. Now, that's one aspect what the ministry wants. The question, why do we need a smart city? Just one quick statistics in terms of our urbanization. 11.4% of the population in 1900 census was in urban areas. 2011 census is about 31.1%, and anticipated by 2030 is 41%. And this is 2014 data, 2013-2014 data. So as of today, these numbers may even go up. So each time you have this in-migration from rural areas to urbanized areas, there's pressure on city services. Our cities are not designed that way. They have grown organically. There are very few cities in India which have been properly designed, keeping all those factors in mind. Chandigarh comes to mind, Gandhinagar is one of them, Bhubaneswar was done recently, and Raipur is another one of them. But these were done, a couple of decades ago. And even these cities, and especially Chandigarh, is also facing now the problem of getting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure, city infrastructure, whether it's about mobility or core infra. So each of these numbers actually become a little bit more alarming. Now the question is, how do we address it? The other aspect, which I want to highlight, I mean, I have heard this, maybe there is somebody from the medical field, but what this slide I wanted to show it to you is a comparative analysis that health of an individual is so strongly linked to how your city is designed. This diagram on the left is basically showing healthy cells in a human body. This is a urban fabric, a city development fabric. By fabric, I mean how your streets are laid out, what is the block size, are you able to walk to the nearest shop, are you able to walk to work. So that is called as a strong fabric. So healthy cells is a symbolic of a city being healthy in terms of its urban growth. But the moment the cells become unhealthy, in terms of fat or other issues, then that's a very symbolic or very similar to what we are starting seeing the urbanization pattern of today, which is sprawl. If it's not sprawl, then it's basically gated communities happening all over the country. We're moving farther away from the city. Developments are getting gated communities, and yes, density is, it's not a relevant issue in India because everything is dense. But then you're moving away, you are driving to your workplace, you're living in a secluded environment for people who can afford it, and cities spreading horizontally and putting more pressure on core infrastructure, and then everybody's driving in for work, resulting into a lot of pressure on our internal urban, whether you call it business districts or places to work. And this has a very strong relationship to health of an individual to how your cities are designed. Because more far away I live from my work, there's a high probability that I'm walking less. In other words, I'm moving from this stage to this stage. Pollution. Now again, this is, one may complain that our system is not designed well in terms of the transportation of the road network. Yes, that's one aspect. But the other aspect is the buying power of citizens, which has gone up in the last 20 years. The moment the buying power is going up, people who used to drive two-wheelers are moving to cars. People who used to drive a car now moving on to 2 cars. People who already had 2 cars now have a car for four family members, and they have 4 cars. There are neighborhoods in Delhi, in Vasant Vihar, with 4 family members in a house, and there are 4 cars. So the system or the infrastructure is still the same. It's not changed. But what's adding onto it is a car or multiple cars. The lanes are fixed. There are more cars. What will happen? Congestion. When congestion happens, so does pollution. So this data, this is actually from World Health Organization, is showing PM 2.5. PM 2.5 is something, there's two components, this particulate matter, there's PM 10 and PM 2.5. PM 10 is something which a human body can mitigate to some extent. Your nostrils are designed that when you inhale it, it will stop it. It's a bigger particulate matter. 2.5, you cannot. 2.5 will go inside your body. While we were working on the Smart City Challenge proposal, there was a big event which happened last year around October, November. Beijing actually had to shut down the entire city for about 3 to 4 days. There's a warning system sent out that nobody should step out of their houses because of very high level of PM 2.5. So they literally had to shut down. Same scenario in Delhi. I think Beijing was around 800 and the number, and Delhi was around 600. And there was no warning. There was nothing. Because not that people are not aware of it, you could actually see it. It's not even as if I'm talking about something which is not visible. You can physically see it, but there's no warning system. So we are actually heading in that direction unless we slice it and cut those problems now. That would mean taking drastic steps. So the reason I wanted to show you this is the question that why smart cities, because that's one aspirational approach where we are trying to address, all of these different components which are interrelated. So income levels is related to traffic congestion. Your health is related to how your cities are designed. Those kind of things, and the choice which each one of us make, the lifestyle choice, because you choose to live outside the city and you choose to drive, to your place of work. That's a lifestyle choice. Instead of living close to where your workplace is and being able to walk. But then if you have to walk, you need a sidewalk. And cities don't have sidewalk. So the point I'm trying to make is that one issue is so strongly linked to everything else, and that's what is one of the fundamental difference in the smart city approach to previous city development approaches. The diagram on the left basically shows the vehicle registration which has gone up in India. This is 2009, and this was anticipated. This is 2016 diagram. So you can see from 2009, it's almost 4 times in 7 years. So again, an indication of, and then PM10 in major Indian cities. So again, you'll see the previous slide was basically showing it in this region. I mean, it's not the world, but neighboring region towards the west of various countries, India, Pakistan, and even I think this is Iran. And so this is what it shows. And then and this is PM10. So again, the signs are very alarming. Some more statistics in terms of, this is now, everybody knows it, but I thought I'd just put the numbers in. Open space per 1,000 people, that's a thumb rule we use. London is around 12, Mumbai is 0.03. And so, we have started doing this exercise for a lot of these cities, and Delhi is, I think, 0.12. So where Delhi, at least the central Delhi, Lutyens Delhi was very well designed, there's huge parks, and but still, the number is not enough. And each time there's a development pressure, what goes off first? Parks. What goes off first? Land which is underutilized is used for development. Now that trend has to be reversed, and we try to do that even in Tirupati Smart City proposal. That land which is underutilized gets converted to a park, but you have to monetize it. So there are models to monetize it. The point is that if we do not reverse this trend, any city in India or most cities in India is not far away from what issues are happening in Beijing. Obesity, again, I'm tying very strongly health. Obesity, and I was shocked when I first read it. I didn't believe it. India is a developing country with more than 60% of the population below poverty line, and is the third most obese country in the world after US and China. So these statistics are really alarming, and it's basically because of our lifestyle choices. This is actually from published reports. Trans fat and junk food and all those things is fine, but just ask ourselves, people who have kids, when you send your kids to school. When I grew up, I used to spend a lot of time outdoors, playing and all those things. And but now I'm seeing a lot of schools, there's no place to play because they've added more buildings because the strength is going up. So what do you compromise? You compromise on open space. So kids play, they may have a badminton court, a tennis court, and all those, but no place to run. And so we are actually the next generation of citizens are actually will be less healthier than what we were. So, and I'm not even considering the external factors of pollution and all those. I'm just considering the factors which you compare to our childhood age and our kids. And then the body mass index, this is something which we try and get from all the cities, and this is also alarming data. Nobody, people don't realize that these pointers are so strongly linked to your city development or building a smart city. Now in India, this probably doesn't have it. The body mass index. I mean, I'll give you an example. I don't remember whether it was Vizag or Chandigarh. 34% of the adult population has a BMI of more than 250, and it should be, and anything above 25 is considered as obese. So just imagine, and they don't know yet. They don't know yet, but they will know when they turn 40. So these are, and then the reason: no sidewalks or lack of sidewalks, or if there are sidewalks, they're encroached. No parks. So all of these components have to be addressed as part of the smart city challenge proposal. And again, this is just a concluding slide for this part, that the way forward has to be inclusive cities, urban governance. That has to be improved. But in order to govern, the municipal commissioner also has to be provided with the necessary tools. That's where technology plays a useful role. Financing, planning. Planning here means proper planning in terms of city development. Not only looking at what problem we have to solve today. There's a road which has a congestion. Let's build a flyover. That's the mindset. We have to think long term. So we have to plan. Although it's all there. I mean, I'm not saying it's not there, but it's not been enforced. It's not been. We don't think that way. Let's solve the immediate problem and then just push the ball for the next guy. Capacity building is very important, and I would say that as part of this mission, the smart city mission, the capacity building, I mean, at the urban local body level has been tremendous. I mean, that level of engagement at the urban local body level with a wide range of experts, with the ministry at the highest level, and even the consultants, when people like me, even I have learned a lot while working on these kinds of projects. So there has been a very comprehensive capacity building, and that is required. There's much more awareness among citizens of what should or should not be done. Now they know that, okay, if we do this, this is an issue, or they have begun to realize that if there's an issue, they have to raise a voice. Why? Because the system or the smart city mission required citizen engagement as one of the core components, which I'll show you in some of the slide. And affordable housing. I mean, again, you must have heard the New Year's announcement by the Prime Minister. I mean, although it was related to demonetization, but there's a lot of emphasis on affordable housing because it's required. And now we'll move on to the real-time application in terms of the Tirupati Smart City. A few things. I mean, people who are from here, I'm sure you know all of these, but these are some general observations. Tirupati as we know it today, I mean, it's one city globally known for Tirumala. More than 75,000 people visit on a daily basis. So just imagine the amount of people coming in and the pressure it may have on the city's infrastructure. The vehicle ownership data shows it's going up. From not only two-wheeler or four-wheeler, everything is going up. So that again shows that the income levels are going up. People are much more aware. Their buying power is high. So the same trend which you see in tier 1 cities, thing which is happening in Delhi, Mumbai, Tirupati is not there today. But if the trends continue, it will reach that level. Pedestrian safety issues, diversified economy, because a lot of these things are actually dependence on spiritual tourism. In unorganized informal sector, we use that word to define that various hawkers you'll see around the city. They are located in different locations. They'll create a shop anywhere they want to, and there's a solution for it, and not to take away their daily livelihood, but to give them a dedicated space. It will clear away the visual clutter. It will clear away the move places for walking, biking, and so on. But we also know Tirupati for a lot of other things, which we learned while we were working on the proposal, thing which we didn't know. Of course, everybody knows it's an international spiritual center, but it's also a natural heritage for lakes and ponds. There are many of them, and the amount of the natural drainage system, or the level of natural drainage system which existed some point in time, it's phenomenal because of slopes, natural slopes and stuff. So, one of the efforts, I mean, we tried, but we haven't achieved it yet, that to return it back to the natural drainage system. But it won't be possible because of the urbanized form. So it has to be done in a much more scientific approach in terms of designing the whole, drainage system. Of course, it's tourism-based economy, but the one thing which surprised me the most was the education and arts. I didn't know that about Tirupati before we started, working on the city. A very strong educational infrastructure, very strong in arts, very strong in culinary. Now these are unique to Tirupati because these kinds of programs do not exist in many educational towns around the country. So again, the reason why this is important is because that needs to be factored in, that caliber that has to be tapped into building the local economy, as well as stating that point to the world that there's more to Tirupati than what they know. So that's why this when in our research we we found out and found this to be very very interesting. Medical tourism is another important aspect, which probably is not very commonly known. At least it's known regionally, but not on the national scenario. So again, the point is that these exercise of building the smart city challenge proposal is also making certain good things which the city has and elevate it to the national scenario. A couple of slides in terms of the city profile. I won't go into the details in terms of the population and all those, but there are some key unique things about Tirupati. The male to female ratio is more or less same. Now, these are, if you compare it to northern states, there's a huge difference. So that actually, from a society point of view, shows a much more mature society. And these are cultural factors which we as planners have to consider. The other interesting aspect is if you look at this bottom slides, the youth under the age of 18 is 34% of the population. Your future is right here in terms of the economic growth, in terms of the the type of industries or type of jobs which should come to Tirupati. So again, these statistics are important. The workforce population, which is 18 to 60, is about 57%. Literacy rate is 86%. So these are like fundamental points, but the analysis is very important to understand, what's today and how we can leverage this for tomorrow. Modal share I talked about, look at the modal share, 32% is the highest in terms of two-wheelers. 25% people walk. It's still a walkable city. Things are within reach, you can still walk. But the problem is sometimes you have to walk on the streets, not on the sidewalks, because the narrow street corridor, things have been built to edge, and there is no space, so there are those practical challenges as well. The car is only 3%, but the ownership of the two-wheelers have increased by 2.3 times and car by 1.6 times. So this is the trend in last 7 years. So the next 7 years, probably this number will double. So, and generally the trend is if the two-wheelers is going a little down, it's still going up, but not at the same pace. The car ownership is going twofolds. So just imagine if all the two-wheelers in the city are replaced by cars, there will be no place to drive. Some of the other things, areas, this slide is also, this thing is also the area under parks and playground is 0.1%. So again, something, which is a matter of concern and how we have tried to address it. As I mentioned, the initial part of the presentation, that there is no definition of smart cities. Each of the cities define their own, vision and aspiration for the smart city. And the way it was done was with a very bottom-up approach. In case of Tirupati, we started with an extensive round of stakeholder engagement. In all, I think we had like 27 different focus groups. We did not leave any sector of the society, be it doctors, be it engineers, be it disabled communities, be it slums, be it women organization, be it spiritual leaders, be the various departments, at the city level. So we spoke to all of them and get their ideas in terms of how or what needs to be improved. So we use that in terms of that information besides the scientific or the data collection information, because this information is coming straight from the people, and we use that to define the vision for Tirupati Smart City. These are just some images of various sessions which we had and how the system was designed. And of course, these are some of the numbers. Although it was required at the time, because this is how a proposal get evaluated by the jury. But when we were done with the citizen engagement process and we looked at these numbers, even we were surprised, because these numbers are extremely good. It just shows the level of engagement or the level of commitment the citizens have to raise their voice against an issue or to raise an idea. And at the same time, the different modes were used. Yes, we are living in a digital technology, but the penetration of digital technology is only maybe less than 10%. Rest of the 90% people are still not connected to smartphones. They have an SMS, but they may have a phone, but not internet access and all those kinds of things. So we used Facebook, we used Twitter, we used surveys, we even surveyed the pilgrims, because there are like 75,000 people coming in. What are the core issues which people want to be addressed as part of the proposal? And of course, some broad themes emerged, which we bundled up, and that actually became the again some points which people raised in various forums, whether it's Facebook or online questionnaire, clean and city gateway to the smart city, protection of every pilgrim. I'll just read some of them. Tirupati as a hub for preventive medicine. These are the things which people said. They said this is what we want for Tirupati to become. Promoting of non-formal education and value-based learning in schools. This came from not an education expert. This came from a normal, maybe a non-education expert. I don't remember exactly, but this was not coming out of the education group. So these are the kind of ideas which we heard. We also heard a lot about arts. We also heard a lot about making it into a IT, technology-based as a center for innovation and startups. These are the kind of things which we heard from a lot of people, and I think a lot of young students probably should be encouraged that that's the vision we have captured and put it in the in terms of the smart city. And then we came up with this statement, the 21st century pilgrimage city that promotes arts, innovation, and sustainable growth. So the whole idea is that we captured, I would say more than 5 or 6 lakh responses and bundled it into a 2-line statement which defines the vision for what Tirupati Smart City is all about. And it's an inclusive city, it's a sustainable city, it will be a city which will continue to value and welcome and address the pilgrimage sector. At the same time, it wants to capitalize on its very strong education and arts related facilities, and of course build upon it as from the point of innovation. Why not have use arts and make Tirupati into a center where innovation in arts is also happening? We are having this workshop in terms of science and technology, a lot of emphasis on innovation. Similarly, there are other sectors in India, arts. There's also non-technical sectors, even those requires innovation, but there's a lack of opportunity. So that's what we want to at least provide, create a platform, I would say, a framework where these things can be applied in Tirupati. And these are some, how from citizen engagement to a detailed SWOT analysis to city profile, and how that resulted into developing a vision and developing goals around it, and then how we structured various projects which align directly with that goal. The purpose of the Smart City Challenge proposal was not only to define a vision and address the issues. Everybody knows the issues. What do you do with those issues is the output. So ultimately, the proposal ended up in was identifying projects, its funding mechanism, and how they will get implemented. In case of Tirupati, we identified around 70 plus projects. I'll walk you through those. And again, the long-term vision was that it builds upon the city resilience framework. There's an international level mission or a event or a program which is called 100 Resilient Cities, and that has been the various foundation, even Bloomberg Foundation is part of that. So they actually list down some of the key things from a very strategic point of view what the cities may do. So we also wanted to align although Tirupati is in India, but align it to the global phenomena which is currently happening. And 100 Resilient Cities or City Resilience Framework is one of those programs. So some of these goals, social and cultural, this thing actually very strongly aligned to it. At the end of the day, we have to also think from the point of view that India is moving at a pace maybe faster than other countries. So, and there are a lot of other programs elsewhere in the world. We at least have to begin to align with those. How it gets implemented is something different. So that was another reason why we aligned some of the guidelines for Tirupati Smart City along with international goals. And again, you look at these, social, cultural, infrastructure, and economy and society, health and well-being, leadership and strategy. It covers all sectors, but worded probably differently. And again, area-based development, which I mentioned, it's a pilot. The reason I am emphasizing so much on this because it's come up so many times in terms of why only this area. So this area which is shown, this is the entire the municipal corporation boundary. So this area is what we call as the area-based development. So this is the focus of the Smart City Challenge proposal, and this would be the pilot area where you'll start seeing the improvements on the ground in next 2 to 3 years in comparison to many other parts of the country. So it's about 746 acres, and I mentioned earlier it's a retrofit model. So retrofit model means that we are fixing what's broken. We are improving what's existing. There's no demolition. There's no those kinds of things at a large scale. So that's a model which we have been picked up in Tirupati. Just some quick facts of the area-based development. I won't go into all of these details in terms of population, the distribution of land uses, the male-female ratio. We have looked at the male-female or women empowerment in a very serious way, because there's an organization in Tirupati, actually rather in the state of Andhra, which has taken elevated those things. I think it's called MEPMA, which has taken it to the next level. Engaging especially women from low-income family and giving them livelihoods and a source of income. So that has to be elevated. So that's why wherever you'll see a lot of references to the male-female ratio, because we want to do 2 things. One, we want to intact it, and one, we want to elevate it. So it's around, and just in case of the area base, again, it's only 3% of the area is actually for recreational land use, which is parks, open spaces, and the rest is a distribution. And primarily it's residential. Then we also looked at the mobility improvements, and I know this diagram would probably be difficult to read, but the point is that we start thinking about fixing some of the things. So we identify some of the streets where without modifying the right of way, because things are built to the edge, how we can make those improvements within that right of way. if you have to add a sidewalk, that means we'll have to encroach inwards towards the carriageway, not towards the property. If you have to make certain improvements in terms of adding NMT, which is non-motorized transportation model, which is a much healthier model of mobility, then where it can be placed. If we have to provide in a city like Tirupati, where there's a lot of transient population, people coming from outside, so they get dropped off at the train station. Then from there they have to go to Tirumala. How do they commute within the city? So they use other modes of transportation, autos, taxis, and those kinds of things. So currently, in many instances, it so happens that these things are randomly placed, and because it's on need by need basis. And so if we can organize that sector as well in terms of providing dedicated spots for taxis and public transportation, so that there's less chaos on the streets, the spaces are defined, they're not standing and operating anywhere they want to, but still they are standing and operating where they should be placed, and everything is tied together through a smart solution, whether it's an app or a digital display system. So that if I am getting off from the train station, I know, okay, if I walk 200 meters, I'll find a taxi. If I walk 500 meters, I'll find a an auto or a e-rickshaw or whatever that is. So that's the level of, once you are able to tell people where to go and how to go it, it makes it very convenient for them to move around and adapt to this new way of mobility. And these are all the the projects, and we'll go quickly one by one. One of the things which we actually emphasize very heavily in terms of the Tirupati, because of its surrounding of huge amount of forest land, we did some assessment in terms of what is the current green cover and what does it amount to, and in order to mitigate the pollution level or the environmental issues, how much of more green space is required. So this was done in thumb rule basis. So just to summarize, approximately 485 acres of green space would be required within Tirupati so that it becomes carbon neutral, and that equates to about 2.2 lakh trees. A part of that is being addressed in the area-based development. This is citywide. So again, from using this data and transforming it into what exactly is required, we have tried to provide solutions which actually looks into this aspect. Then we started naming it. Some of these actually all the projects were titled to give it a more Indian feel instead of just calling it a transportation improvement. So in this one we call it Atiti Agaman Path. So as the name suggests, it's basically about enhancing let's say the mobility and the services to the pilgrims, which is coming to the city on a daily basis. In some of these naming, actually we went too far, but at the time it sounded really nice. So, and this project actually had multiple components. It focused on providing dedicated pedestrian walkways, water ATMs, public toilets at regular intervals, places to sit when somebody is coming from outside, and transforming the existing bus stop into a multimodal transportation hub. That's a big ticket project. At the same location, but make it into a much more comprehensive and a sustainable model of for growth. And we have a concept design for it that way as well. The other one is an arts district. So again, tapping into the arts sector, whether it's about creating a museum or some kind of a facility where kids or professionals can go and display their work. You have to provide those platforms, where they're able to display the talents. At the same time, invite people, investors or buyers or whosoever is interested in those kinds of things to come to Tirupati and start spreading those that expert. So these are just some the concept of how the multimodal transportation hub could look like. And again, this is the conceptual design, but the key components here is providing a medical facility. So currently it's only a bus stop, bus depot. But the key components is having a medical facility, screening facility, because anybody coming from outside, or not feeling sick or feeling sick, probably gets this facility to get used to, as well as it's used for the citizens. Food courts, adding more accommodation, whether it's a dormitory style or maybe 3-star or 5-star hotel, and having dedicated outdoor spaces. So these are the kind of thing which is required. So suddenly it will become a center in terms of its application in the real world. And at the same time, the movement and would be in and around the transit hub would be much more smoother to avoid those critical things. So the point is that anybody who gets off the train station in Tirupati, because that's where most of the pilgrims or visitors come, they have a convenient way to reach the spot, and from there they can go wherever they want to go. The other component is the arts district, which consists of a library, a museum, a skill development center, and an incubation center. And then of course, this is the corridor I was talking about. This is where the rail station is. So all the way from here till the bus depot has to be a seamless moving path. with proper dedicated sidewalks, water ATMs at regular intervals, shelter for people who want to sit down, proper public information system right at the stop, right at the spot where they get off, so that they know from a digital display point of view where do they have to go. Another point which we want to emphasize is that, okay, right now people get to the train station and they go to Tirumala and they go out, they leave. If we can make them stay another day, now that will add a lot to the local economy. The question is, why would somebody stay? So that's where these facilities, arts, museums, libraries, proper places to sit down, restaurants, or play area for kids. These things add value to the local system where people would like to stay with their families. In terms of, again, I said, we have named each of these projects. So basically, Rasta is about mobility. The concept of green streets, which actually looks into stormwater management, localized stormwater management. It looks into minimizing the urban heat island effect, then transforming one of the major corridors, which is the Hare Krishna Promenade, from a vehicular only to a pedestrian only corridor. So there are some renderings I'll show it to you. And as I mentioned, we have to work around what's existing. Some of the streets are extremely narrow; they cannot be widened. But at the same time, we have to solve those problems. So one of the ideas is that those could become one way, but those could also become a shared streets. By shared street, I mean your vehicular as well as pedestrian as well as NMT, the non-motorized transportation. They move seamlessly, but safety aspect have to be considered. Sugamya Tirupati, again from the point of view of cultural improvements, whether it's a signage. So each time somebody comes to Tirupati through a proper signage system, they should be able to maneuver around the city. So we want to develop that a toolkit where people are able to seamlessly move from point A to point B, or even identify things they want to do which interest them. So then throughout the major corridors, providing the information kiosk, and again using technology as an overlay on some of the physical components to provide necessary information to people living or visiting Tirupati. And again, some ideas in terms of how this can be detailed out from the point of view of specific corridors and specific streets. And all of this was done, because it's easy to write that let's make a green street. But once you start designing it based upon the ground realities, so you realize that no, we need to make some adjustments. So that is why this exercise was done. So although it's a conceptual level drawing, but in case of the Tirupati Smart City proposal, we have also put in this level of details, from the point of view of, so when it goes into implementation, it's not just an image, it's something which can be implemented. And again, some Harit Vidhi, and again, these are the different projects. We cluster different projects and name them relevant to its theme. And just quick, the Hare Krishna road. This is how it currently looks today, but this is how it can be. There's a lot of big movement going on in the country. Because cities like Gurgaon, which doesn't have, forget open spaces, it doesn't even have place to walk. It only has place to either live or drive. So Rahagiri is a system which started about few years ago. So on the same model, something of this can be done, which is very relevant to the local economy. And again, organized vending or hawker zones throughout the city. Unnati is again from the point of view of refurbishing the existing vegetable market. It stays where it is, but it gets refurbished, it gets improved, adding Anganwadi, adding parks, adding ATMs, and now we are in a digital economy, or at least moving towards a digital economy, so those things actually have to be addressed. Project Nivas is about affordable housing project and including about 436 families. And again, these are just some examples of how the current vendors can be replaced by this kind of a look. It's cleaner look, it's a neater look, it takes less space, and it will make the street, it will decongest the streets because you will not be encroaching upon the existing right-of-ways. Improving education through e-learning. Now, this is a project which has already been implemented in Tirupati. So, and this is one of the components where the interior of the classroom has been changed to make it look more playful. We go to schools, if you compare public schools to private schools, the biggest difference is the ambience. And once of the ambience is so, it's seen at times it's a little neglected. So this is one initiative in terms of which has been implemented where the classrooms are looking playful and creates an environment of learning and teaching, and at the same time adding technology as a tool. So this is a digital blackboard. You can write on it in different languages, you can learn through it, you can save it. So it's no longer that you write with a chalk and rub it. Whatever you write, whatever you do can be displayed, can be recorded, can be shared with other students, can be sent to the parents or whatever. And so those are the kind of things which has already been implemented in Tirupati from e-learning point of view at a very young age. Slum redevelopment I've already talked about. The Udyan is about parks, and again focusing mostly on the point of view that let's not reduce the number of parks, let's increase the number of parks. So this is about Concept of shared playground. All schools do not have a playground, or all neighborhoods do not have a playground within a 5-minute walking distance. A 5-minute walking distance is about 400 meters. So if you do not have a neighborhood park within a 400 to a 600 meters, beyond that distance, it's highly unlikely that somebody will walk. So this is some of the generic planning thumb rule which we use. So in case, there is a school which has a park, that park can be used by school in daytime, but becomes a public park post school hours. So that collaboration between the corporation, the SPV and the schools has to happen. But in principle, that's the concept of shared playground. Chandigarh has done it. It's been implemented in India, in other cities. Upgradation of existing parks to add plot lots, to add more play areas, and of course adding new parks. This is again the lake restoration. We use the word restoration, but actually it's not a restoration. It's about beautification, improving the existing conditions, and adding a lot of organized sector in terms of vendors and seating areas and all those. So this one is for the CR Reddy poster. So this is the concept for that, and again also focusing on the urban stormwater management system. So one of the effort we have tried to make is that stormwater management cannot be solved by an overarching citywide stormwater network. It has to be addressed locally. Recycling underutilized land, again, let's not convert anything which is underutilized into a development. I mean, that can be converted into a park and a playground. Solar rooftop, power through renewable source is a mandate from the ministry. 10% of the solar has to come from the solar rooftop. So here the approach has been to convert all the public buildings, institutional buildings with solar panels, and that becomes the to achieve the 10% this thing. And again, from a mobility point of view, smart bus stops, battery operated buses. The pilot could be 10 buses. The whole idea is to let's move or deviate away from diesel or petrol or fossil fuel based buses, but do it in a phased manner. Do 10 first, then add 20, then replace the whole system slowly and incrementally. A list of various amenities in terms of public toilets and water, ATM, street furniture, bins at every 50 meters. At times, you must be wondering that even if you want to throw something in a dustbin, you will not find a dustbin. That's the reason being because it's placed so far away that it's inconvenient. So that is why we have placed dustbin every 50 meters. And again, from an infrastructure point of view, then and again from the core infra, rainwater harvesting, power supply, from solar, the project Suchi, where we call as reduction, reuse, recycling, and recovery. We cannot solve solid waste management issue only by recycling or distribution and those kind of things. Recycling, reuse has to be embedded in our culture. Again, these are the list of all the various projects. The augmentation of water supply system, adding SCADA system for monitoring, as well as reduction in NRW, storage reservoirs, 100% household service connections, wastewater management, wastewater treatment facilities, stormwater management from the point of view of adding green streets as well as the 4 Rs, sanitation, from the point of view of adding community toilets, adding public toilets, and adding toilets in schools. So that's another, both male and female. Smart roadside bins, which is RFID bins, which from a central command and control center, you can actually monitor when the bin is full and get it changed. Then improvement of collection and GPS system, smart energy meters, smart water meters. Again, this aspect, construction and demolition waste management, is something which is not thought of or not talked about in Indian scenario. So we thought maybe this is something which can be done, and we met a professor from Chennai who has done it in Chennai for the whole city. So the IIT Chennai and IIT Tirupati can have a collaboration. A strategy can be formulated that could become a policy. So any construction and demolition waste will just not sit, where the demolition has happened. It will have its own recycling. It will have its own thing. So that is something which has been made to the next to an advanced level in terms of discussion and implementation. PAN City project, again, this is an IT or ICT based solution. Now here, as part of the PAN City project, what we call as Sagraha Tirupati, the 3 key components: an integrated city collaboration center, which is in very simple terms command and communication center; intelligent poles, these are called as smart poles. These smart poles actually can have multiple functions, telecom to environmental sensors to Wi-Fi network. So these are only addressed in the area-based development. And citizen collaboration platform, from providing services to citizens on an app base or a web base in a one consolidated comprehensive system. These are some different components, in terms of the various ideas of how this different system will work together. Although there are three components in the Sagraha, Tirupati, Fan City proposal, but the design intent is that all three of them will talk to each other. It won't be the case that, the citizen collaboration platform doesn't know what's being done in the command and communication center. And the command and communication center is a facility from where you can monitor and operate all the city functions. For instance, RFID based dustbins, you will know which bin is filled. It will show up in your command and control center, and you'll be able to immediately inform the relevant agency to clean it up. Your bus stop, your buses, would be GPS enabled buses, will know where it's moving around. Even in terms of water or any emergency, those things can be monitored and mitigated through the command and communication center. And again, some more, some innovative ideas which we actually thought through as part of the this thing. And this is the last slide, and I thought I'll conclude with yes, there's a mission, Ministry of Urban Development mission, which clearly lays out the guidelines. There is a need in the country to do smart cities. Yes, we have the smart city challenge proposals. Yes, cities have been selected, but still there are challenges. So one challenge is the timelines, because a lot of things, because I travel around the country in various forums, so and talk to citizens, and one thing the citizens keeps asking is that my city is smart, and but I don't see anything happening on the ground. And the point being, so that's where your timeline is so critical. So it has to be done quickly, but also in a practical manner. There are a lot of solutions in IT or non-IT based, which is untested technology. It's not been done in India. So how they get used and the success and failure of those technologies, only time will tell. There are a lot of projects, in case of Vizag, we have suggested few projects, which rather we could not even find a comparable anywhere in the world. So, those are the kind of thing. But the point is the aspirational levels should be high. Somebody in the previous session mentioned about innovation, support, that society doesn't support that. And I totally agree. This is the time to, innovate in a practical way and also try do something different. So, but some of these could be untested technologies. Availability of data, that's always a concern. How do you design a system when you don't even know what the baseline is? So that is true for all Indian cities, and many cities don't even have they know where the core infra, water or sewer mains are. And those are the real-time challenges when you are trying to fix those core infra. The other thing is we are talking about brownfield smart cities. So any change, which you do, you start improving a street, that will result in disruption in the day-to-day movement. So again, there has to be minimal improvement, minimal disruption in the citizen's life. So again, that's a challenge. The interdepartmental coordination. Yes, as an idea, we are